The lights flickered in the lower levels of Station Gorna 9, far below the clean labs and guard towers, past the humming pipes and damp metal corridors. There was a door marked, Restricted, Subject 9, Caution, Aggressive Alien, a young human, worker, stood in front of it holding a tray of food. His boots were wet. His fingers were shaking. He had only been on the station for a month. He cleaned floors. He carried supplies. And now, he had been told to feed the savage alien in the cage. Just slide the tray in, don't talk to her, the officer had said. She's a beast, not a guest. Elian took a deep breath, then opened the door. The room was dark and cold. A single red light glowed over a steel cage in the center. Inside sat a woman, tall, strong, strange. Her skin was silver blue. Her long hair hung like ropes of dark silk. She was barefoot, her clothes torn and old. Her arms and ankles were locked with glowing cuffs. She didn't snarl. She didn't move. She just watched him. Elian's breath caught. This wasn't what he expected. Where was the monster? Where was the savage? The woman's golden eyes were glowing, but not wild. They looked tired, afraid. He stepped forward slowly. His hands trembled as he set the tray down on the metal slide. Warm protein bars, water, fruit jelly. He looked up again. The woman hadn't moved. She stared at the tray, then back at him. Still not moving. Still not blinking. You can eat, Elian said quietly. I'm not here to hurt you. She tilted her head, still silent. He took a small step back, then another. Just before he reached the door, he looked over his shoulder. She had stood up, slowly, gracefully. She walked to the tray and knelt beside, still watching him. Then, finally, she picked up a fruit jelly and began to eat. Elian didn't sleep well that night. He kept thinking about her, about how still she had been, how human her eyes looked. Not wild, not angry, just alone. The next morning, Elian returned. New tray, same food. He opened the door, walked in. She was already waiting by the bars. This time she was sitting cross-legged. Her arms rested on her knees. She didn't look angry, but she didn't smile, either. Elian placed the tray down again. She looked at it, then at him, then said nothing. He turned to leave, but something made him pause. He turned back. Do you have a name? Silence. The woman touched the fruit jelly but didn't eat. Not yet. Elian waited. She waited. Then, she nodded. Just once. Elian smiled a little. Okay. I'll be back later. As he left, he heard the soft sound of chewing. That evening, 2 guards stopped him in the hallway. Hey, kid, one said. You feeding the beast down there? Elian nodded carefully. She hasn't tried to bite you? No. The other guard spat. Just wait. That thing snapped a medic's arm 3 months ago. Be careful. Elian didn't answer. Because he wasn't sure anymore. That night, in the cage, the woman sat closer to the bars, still silent, still watching. Elian placed the food down again. He looked at her, then sat on the ground, outside the cage just a few feet away. Do you understand? Me? He asked. She blinked, then nodded again. Slow, controlled. He smiled. Well, I'm Elian. She didn't respond. I don't know what they've done to you, he continued softly, but I'm not them. I just want to help. She stared at him a long time, then whispered something, a voice like wind. Elian leaned closer. What was that? But she turned away and began to eat. As Elian walked out of the room, he didn't notice the tiny drone hovering near the ceiling. Recording, silently transmitting his voice, and hers, to someone watching on another screen. A scientist who whispered, She's beginning to respond, keep the boy talking. The lower levels of Station Gorna 9 always smelled like cold metal and old secrets. Elian had never liked this part of the station. It was too quiet, too forgotten. But every day now, he came anyway, carrying a tray of food and something else. He couldn't name. The guard still laughed behind his back. Feeding the savage again, hero. She'll rip your throat out one day. Elian didn't answer. He wasn't feeding a savage, he was feeding her. Inside the cage room, the air always felt heavier. Subject 9, or as Elian now called her in his thoughts, the woman, was waiting. Same position. Knees pulled to her chest, long hair hanging over her face. But her golden eyes were locked on him before the door even opened. She never moved until he set the tray down. She never blinked until he looked away. She watched. Every motion, every breath. Today, Elian didn't leave right away. He sat again, a few feet from the bars, resting his back against the wall. Hope it tastes better than it smells, he joked softly. Silence. He didn't expect her to laugh, but he hoped she'd at least keep listening. From his pocket, he pulled out a small music pod. Nothing fancy, just old Earth songs stored from before he left the colonies. He placed it near the tray and pressed play. Soft piano music filled the air, slow and calm. The woman tilted her head. She didn't growl. She didn't back away. She just listened. After a few minutes, she reached for the fruit jelly again. Elian smiled a little. Same favorite, huh? Still no reply, but her eyes didn't leave his this time. Not until the music stopped. Back in the guard room, the surveillance team watched through a small hidden drone. One scientist leaned forward. She's responding to sound. Another muttered, or the boy. Could be emotional mapping. The senior tech paused the feed. Let it continue. No interference yet. Let's see how far it goes. The next day, Elian tried something new. He brought a small sketch pad, sat down again. I used to draw a lot, he told her. Helps me stay calm. She stared. He flipped the page and started sketching. Nothing big, just simple shapes. Then her, and what he remembered from yesterday. He pushed the sketch pad near the bars when he was done. I'm not very good, he said, but that's you. The woman looked down slowly, then reached through the bars and turned the page. She wanted him to draw more. The next few days became a quiet routine. Food, sketches, soft music, and always her golden eyes watching. Never, blinking, never looking away until he did. Then came the change. On the 5th day, Elian entered as usual, but she was already standing, at the front of the cage, waiting. She didn't back away when he stepped close, didn't flinch when he set the tray down. She pointed at the sketch pad, then at herself, then touched her chest and then said, Varka. Her voice was low, rough, but clear. Elian froze, then smiled. That's your name? She nodded once. Not wild, not broken, just seen. That night, Elian couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling of his tiny room, repeating her name in his head. Varka. Not subject 9, not a monster. Just a woman with a name and eyes that never stopped watching him. The next morning he brought something new. A small scarf, soft cloth from his bunk. It's not much, he said, but maybe it'll help, with the cold. She took it from the tray gently, pressed it to her face, then folded it neatly and placed it beside the wall. Her voice came again, barely a whisper. Why? He looked at her. You matter, he said. That was all. Far above them, the stations. Director reviewed the latest report. She said her name? Yes. And he gave her cloth? Yes. The director narrowed his eyes. Too much empathy ruins the experiment. Prepare the neural reset. Down in the dark, Varka sat beside her scarf, and for the first time, she was afraid again. Varka, that name now lived in Elian's mind like a flame. He said it silently as he walked the halls. He whispered it when alone in his room. He never said it near the guards, because the name was a secret between just the two of them. A name meant she was someone. And someone was not supposed to be in a cage. That morning, Elian stepped into the feeding room earlier than usual. He was excited. He had found something strange in storage, an old hollow book with children's stories. He thought she might like it. But when he entered the room, something felt wrong. Very wrong. Varka was on the ground, not sitting, not watching, not waiting. Just still. Her eyes were open, but distant. Her shoulders slumped. The scarf he'd given her lay untouched beside her. She didn't even look at the tray when he placed it down. "Varka," Elian whispered. No answer. "Varka, what's wrong?" Still nothing. He stepped closer to the cage, knelt low. Her lips moved. Just one word. "They came." That hit him like a punch to the chest. He looked up at the walls, at the silent cameras, at the lights that had flickered differently when he arrived. "They did something to you?" he asked. She didn't nod, but a small tear rolled down the side of her cheek, and Elian understood. Upstairs, the lead scientist made his report. The subject's aggression levels have dropped significantly. Speech forming? Yes, but the empathy mapping was rising too quickly. We've applied a neural dampener, only partial, just enough to reset the bonding process. The director grunted. And the human? We didn't interfere with him. Good. Keep him close, let's see if she remembers. Back in the cage room, Elian reached through the bars, his fingers touched hers. Barely. But she didn't pull away. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "They don't want you to be human." She blinked slowly. "They want to erase what makes you, you." Then softly, with great effort, she said, "You, remember me?" He nodded. Every moment. The next few days, Elian didn't miss a visit, even when she didn't speak. Even when she didn't eat. He stayed beside her, outside the cage, drawing simple things, humming old Earth songs, telling her stories from his life. "I was raised on a dust farm, never met my dad. I came to space for a job, not war. I thought kindness was weakness, then I met you." Slowly, Varka began to respond again, one word, then two, then a smile, a real one, soft, tired, but real. She even touched the scarf again, holding it close to her face when she slept. Then something changed. One night, after lights out, a low alarm buzzed in the hallway. A message flashed on the wall. "All personnel, Subject 9 scheduled for memory clearance in 48 hours. Elian froze. Memory clearance? That meant total wipe. Everything, her speech, her bond, her name, gone. He ran to the labs, used his clearance to access her profile. And there, it was Subject 9 neural reset ordered. Reason: emotional instability due to human influence. Elian backed away from the screen. His hands trembled. He couldn't let this happen. He couldn't lose her. That night, he stayed awake, staring at the cage room door. Inside, Varka slept lightly, curled near the wall, the scarf under her head like a pillow. He whispered, "I won't let them take your name." The next day, Elian slipped a coded chip into his pocket, a bypass key. He entered the cage room. Varka looked up. He reached through the bars and took her hand. "Tonight," he whispered, "we run." Varka gripped his hand back, and for the first time she smiled without fear. Elian had never stolen anything in his life, but tonight he was stealing hope. He walked quickly through the empty corridors of Station Gorna 9, the bypass chip hidden in his boot. His heart pounded. His hand clenched the access badge he borrowed from a sleeping tech. He wasn't just feeding her anymore. He was going to free her. Inside the cage room, Varka was already awake. She always felt things before they happened. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was survival. Tonight she was sitting up, alert, quiet, and calm. But when Elian entered, she stood. And for the first time, she stepped closer to the bars on her own. He didn't speak right away, he just looked at her. She looked back, the kind of silence that carried weight. Then he reached into his coat, pulled out a tiny white chip. "This will open the lock," he said softly. "But it'll only buy us 10 minutes before the alarm triggers." Varka didn't ask questions. She understood everything from his eyes. She stepped even closer. He held out his hand, through the bars. She looked at it. At him. For a second, the fire in her golden eyes flickered, not anger, something softer. Her hand rose, slow, uncertain. She touched his fingertips, then laced them through his, and Elian felt heat. Not fire. Life. The warmth of a living being who had been cold for too long. Her voice came low and sure. If we fail, they will kill you. Elian smiled. Then I'd rather die trying to help you than live watching them break you. Varka's grip tightened. Then we go. He inserted the bypass chip into the console. The metal cage door hissed unlocked. She stepped out slowly. Not rushing, not wild. She moved like she was reclaiming her space. Every step forward was a promise. I was caged, but I am not broken. The hallway lights dimmed. They moved fast. Varka barefoot and silent, Elian guiding her through the maintenance tunnels beneath. The floor grates, they passed fuel lines, slept corridors, storage rooms full of junk. But then, a motion sensor clicked, an alarm chirped once, then again. The red lights blinked on. Intruder detected, Subject 9. Location breached. Guards started shouting. Elian grabbed Varka's hand. Run! They ran together down the narrow pipe path. Varka kept pace easily, but never left him behind. When a steel gate dropped ahead, Elian reached for the control panel. Just give me 10 seconds. Behind them, footsteps, 2 armed guards, blasters ready. Step away from the subject, one barked. Hands up! Elian froze, but Varka stepped in front of him, slowly, hands still empty. Her eyes glowed brighter now. One of the guards aimed at her head. She didn't flinch. She spoke. You kept me in a cage. Now, feel how small cages really are. She raised her hand slowly, and a pulse of raw heat blasted from her skin, not fire but force. The guards flew backward into the wall, stunned, weapons scattering. Elian unlocked the gate. They slipped through. Moments later, they reached the emergency pod bay. Only one escape pod was still charged. Varka paused. I do not know where it will go. Elian opened the door and smiled. Anywhere is better than here. They climbed inside. The pod launched. Silent. Fast. Gone. Into the black sky. Inside, Varka looked out the window. Her chains were gone, her collar was gone, her voice returned. She turned to Elian. You came for me. He nodded. I never saw a savage in that cage, he said. I saw a soul. Back on Station Gorna 9, the director slammed his fist. They escaped? Yes, sir. The pod is untraceable. Then, find them. He looked at the screen, paused on Elian holding Varka's hand. If she bonds with him fully, she won't just be free. She'll be powerful. The emergency pod tore through the void, fast, untraceable, silent. Inside, Elian and Varka sat in the tight space, breathing hard, hands still linked. For the first time since the cage opened, Elian spoke. We're not safe yet. Varka nodded, her golden eyes scanning the nav screen. They weren't heading toward any registered colony. The pod's course was locked, a failsafe used by prisoners during escape. They had no idea where it would take them. But for now, they were free. And freedom was enough. Back on Station Gorna 9, alarms still echoed, sirens flashed. Blood pooled in the corners where guards had fallen. In the lower level, one of the surviving officers dragged himself toward the control room. She's loose, and she's not alone. The station director stood in front of a large display, watching the recorded footage. Elian unlocking the cage. Varka stepping out, her hand in his. He frowned. She didn't attack. He whispered. She chose. One scientist spoke carefully. Sir, the bond is stronger than expected. She didn't just follow him. She protected him. Another added, she's still evolving emotionally. If they stay close, her mental barriers may never reset again. The director's face hardened. Then we stop this before she becomes more than just free, before she becomes a symbol. 3 days later, The pod landed. Rough. Hard. A burst of sparks exploded as it crashed into a rocky field covered in red grass. Elian groaned. Still alive? Varka opened the hatch and stepped out first. Sunlight hit her skin. For a moment she simply stood there, eyes closed, breathing in the warm air. Then she smiled. It was the first true smile Elian had seen. From her, the planet was quiet. No towers, no cities, no machines, just wind, stone, and trees with silver leaves. A world unclaimed. Elian built a small shelter from the pod's shell. Varka hunted small animals, gathered fruits. They said little, but every word mattered. One night, while sitting near a fire, Elian asked, "Why did you shield me when they aimed their guns?" She looked at him, her voice soft. "Because I was never dangerous. Until someone made me care, but danger still followed." High above the planet, a small shadow broke the sky. A black recon ship, sleek and silent. Inside, a mercenary team reviewed fresh scans. "Target acquired," one said. "Confirm biosignature. Subject 9, accompanied by human male." The squad leader growled. "Orders? No capture, no mercy. Terminate." The next morning, as Elian washed near a stream, he felt the ground tremble. Just a little, but enough. "Varka," he shouted. She was already running, no words, just instinct. She grabbed his arm, pulled him down into the trees. The sound of ships landing filled the sky. 3 armored mercs spread out through the forest, helmeted, armed, scanning every life form. One stopped near the crash site, saw the broken shelter. They were here. Then came the voice through the helmet. "Burn everything, hunt the girl first." Elian and Varka hid beneath thick roots, but the scanners grew louder. Closer. "Run," Elian whispered. "I won't leave you," Varka replied. "You don't have to." She stepped out from behind the tree, not afraid, not hiding. The merc spotted her and raised his rifle. Subject 9, surrender. Too late. She moved fast, not like a soldier, like a storm. She grabbed the barrel and melted it with a pulse of heat from her palm. The merc screamed as she struck him down with a single blow. Elian ran behind her. 2 more came from the right. He ducked, rolled. Varka took 1 hit to the shoulder, but didn't stop. She roared. Not a scream, but a command. And the trees bent. The fire spread in a line behind her like a trail of flame. When it was over, the attackers were gone. Some dead, some fled. And in the center of the blackened clearing stood Varka, wounded but tall, her chest rising and falling, her eyes glowing like a rising sun. Elian ran to her. "You're hurt." She touched the burn, shrugged. "I'm alive," then looked at him. "So are you. That's all that matters." That night, they lay in silence inside a new shelter. This one built from nature, not steel. Elian placed his hand over hers. "You're not the same as when I found you." Varka smiled faintly. "I was never a monster," she whispered. "You just reminded me I was a woman first." The planet had no name, no government, no borders, just wind that hummed through crystal trees, red grass that moved like waves, and skies that shifted color from gold to silver with every sunrise. For the first time in her life, Varka was free. No collar, no cage, no one watching her through glass. And yet, she stayed close to Elian. By choice, not survival. They built their life piece by piece. The shelter wasn't fancy, just branches, stone, and scrap from the crashed pod. But it was theirs. Varka hunted small creatures with her bare hands. She brought fruits Elian had never seen before. Some sweet, some spicy, some that made his tongue go numb. He learned quickly which ones to avoid. She laughed. Her laugh. It wasn't loud, but it was real. And Elian thought it was the best sound this planet had ever heard. Some mornings they didn't speak at all. They just walked. Through fields, along rivers that glowed at night. They sat on warm rocks and watched birds with 6 wings dance through the sky. Elian would glance sideways at her silver blue skin glowing in sunlight, and wonder how anyone could have called her a savage. One night, as the stars blinked above, Varka leaned against him near the fire. Her head rested gently on his shoulder. "Why did you stay?" she asked. Elian thought for a moment, then answered honestly, "Because I saw your eyes, and they didn't look like a monster's." She was quiet for a long time, then whispered, "No one ever looked at me like you did." She traced her fingers down his arm, slow, careful. "You didn't feed me food," she said. "You fed my soul. You reminded it how to live." Elian turned to her, breath caught in his throat. "And you reminded me how to feel again," he replied. Their lips touched, for the first time, not in fear, not in silence, but in warmth. The next morning, Varka stood barefoot on a cliff edge, eyes closed, her hair danced in the wind. Elian watched from a distance as she raised both hands gently. Heat shimmered in the air around her, not like fire, more like life. The ground bloomed beneath her feet, small white flowers pushing through the red grass. He stepped closer. "What are you doing?" She opened her eyes. "Giving the land something back." Later, Elian carved her name into a flat stone, Varka, and placed it at the entrance to their shelter. She tilted her head. "What is that?" "A door sign," he grinned. "So visitors know this place belongs to you." She smiled and added one word below her name. "Elian." That evening, while watching the stars, she asked softly, "Do you think they'll find us again?" Elian's smile faded. "They'll try." Varka leaned into him. "Then I'll burn the sky if I have to. No one cages me again." He took her hand and pressed it over his chest. "No one cages us again." As the fire crackled, Varka lay beside him, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. She whispered something soft, words in her own alien language. Elian didn't understand, but he felt the meaning. It was peace. It was love. In the sky above, clouds shimmered with silver light. The world had accepted them, not because they were strong, not because they fought, but because they healed, together. Far beyond the quiet stars, across many systems, hidden messages began to spread. The savage has survived. She is free. She was seen, and she is loved. And in the dark, others like her, forgotten, broken, chained, began to rise. Because one woman found a human, and he fed her not with fear, but with hope. The wind whispered softly through the crystal trees. Varka sat by the river with her feet in the water, eyes closed, hands resting on her knees. The morning light turned her silver blue skin golden. Her breath was slow, steady. Around her, the air shimmered, not from heat but from her presence. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was growing. Elian stepped down from the shelter, carrying a woven basket full of fruit and herbs. He had learned the land, learned her rhythms, learned how to live without machines, rules, or walls. But the most important thing he had learned was her. He watched her from a distance, smiling. She turned her head slightly. "You're watching me again." "I always do." She stood, water dripping from her toes, and walked toward him. "You never get tired of me?" she teased. He shook his head. "I still can't believe you're real." She placed a hand on his chest. "You made me real." Later that day, they worked in silence. Varka tended the garden, plants she had coaxed from the earth using warmth and instinct. Elian reinforced the roof of their shelter. They didn't need to talk. Their hearts were already in rhythm. At sunset, Varka sat beside the fire, her hair glowing in the fading light. Elian sat across from her, sharpening a tool. Then she asked a question he didn't expect. "What would you do if I wasn't like this?" He looked up. "What do you mean?" "If I never smiled, never spoke, still in the cage, still savage. Would you have still helped me? Elian didn't blink. I helped you because you were in the cage, he said. Not because you smiled. Not because you were beautiful. He leaned forward. I helped you because I saw pain, and I knew what that felt like. Her throat tightened. She lowered her eyes. That's when I began to bloom, she whispered. When someone saw me as more than a thing. That night she took his hand and led him to the river under the stars. There, without words, they lay together, bodies warm, hearts full, surrounded by life they built with no permission and no fear. And in that moment, Varka wasn't an experiment, wasn't a subject, wasn't even an alien. She was his, and he was hers. Elsewhere, the awakening begins across the stars. News of Varka's escape had spread in whispers. Some believed it was just a story, but others knew the truth. In dark labs and hidden outposts, other subjects stirred. Some were half-tamed, some fully broken, but deep inside, they remembered her name. She was called Savage, but someone loved her, and she fought for that love. One day, a message reached Elian and Varka. A voice came through a strange signal. We followed your light. We need a place to heal. Can we come? Varka didn't hesitate. Yes, she replied. Come home. Within days they arrived, 3 beings, each different. One insect-like, one covered in soft fur, one thin and pale with glowing fingers, all once caged, all once forgotten. Varka welcomed them with open arms. Elian shared food, shared smiles, shared silence. Their home grew, stone by stone, voice by voice, and every night Varka sat by the fire and told her story. They called me Subject 9. They fed me through a slot in a wall. But one day, a boy gave me food and stayed to watch me eat. She smiled, looking at Elian. He fed me love, and that changed everything. A ceremony under the stars. It wasn't a wedding. There were no papers, no guests, no rules, just a promise. Varka stood under a glowing tree, her body painted in natural ink, her eyes bright. Elian stood across from her, holding a single white flower. HFY said, No cage will ever hold you again. She replied, No fire will ever burn you, because I will be its shield. They touched foreheads. The community cheered. The planet bloomed. Months passed. Then one day, as Varka sat alone in the sun, she placed a hand on her stomach. She smiled. Something beat inside her, not just her own heart. New life. She ran to Elian, took his hand and whispered, You gave me freedom. I give you forever. Final scene, a story. Retold years later, a small child ran through the red grass, half human, half Varka. She stopped at the stone near the garden. Carved on it were the words, This place bloomed because someone chose love over fear. Varka and Elian, the child turned to her mother. Is it true? She asked. They really called you a monster? Varka knelt and held her close. Yes, she said, but only until someone looked at me and saw something else. The child smiled, and in her eyes was the same golden glow that once lit up a dark cage in the heart of a space station. But now that glow belonged to freedom, to family, to fire. That bloomed into love. They fed her like a beast. But he saw her hunger for something deeper, and when he gave her love, she gave him a whole world. This is not the story of a cage. It's the story of how one human hand unlocked a soul.